Did you lose my audio for a
Yes, I
second
did,
there?
and you still sound a little fuzzy.
Ah, well, I can assure you I am not actually fuzzy.
Well, that's good to know. I'm Tom Dickinson,
And I'm Louis Midas,
and this is the Cloister Room.
a podcast about Doctor Who and other things.
So, The Crimson Horror, did you watch it?
I did watch it, however, I only watched it 1.5 times.
Ooh.
It is a recent low for me, because usually I watch them 2 or 3 times. But my weekend was a little bit busy, and I only watched it once, and then I watched it again, but I fell asleep while watching it.
Oh, really? So that's not a great sign.
No. Well, in my defense, it had been a long day, so perhaps it wasn't the episode, but just rather my own frailty as a human being.
Human frailty can have that effect. Did you enjoy the episode?
You know, I did. It was a different kind of enjoyment, because it was really, this was like, I think, the cheesiest of episodes that we've gotten in recent memory. From everything from the ground up was just super cheesy, and to be honest, I kind of liked it.
That's definitely true. That's 100% true. Yeah, I liked it too. I feel like it's cheesy in a way that hasn't really been done in quite a while. Mm-hmm. During the Matt Smith era, I might even say.
Yeah.
It harkens back to some of the sillier things that you might have seen, like in, for instance, The Fires of Pompeii has some just goofy jokes. Mm-hmm. In fact, I think, like, for instance, there's the Welsh joke with the TARDIS translation in Fires of Pompeii, which is kind of the same caliber as the Thomas joke.
Yes.
What did you think of that joke?
I loved that joke.
Yes, I adore that joke. I heard a lot of people on Twitter saying that was I thought it was just terrible enough.
I completely agree. It was just so ridiculous, and I loved it to bits. Just, from the delivery of his sort of monotone directions and just the introduction, I just love that.
But anyhow, I would go so far as to say that this episode was my favorite episode since The Girl Who Waited.
Wow.
Which is quite a way back.
That is quite a way back. Wow.
About a season back.
Yeah. That's wow. That is an impressive thing to say.
Well, I'm glad you found my saying of it very impressive. I hope I said it impressively enough.
You did. Yeah, it was definitely a very good episode. I don't think I would quite rate it that highly, but I definitely liked it quite a bit. I think that, certainly this season, I think that Hyde is still my favorite episode, but this I liked for, once again, completely different reasons, but it was quite enjoyable. Possibly my second favorite. I will give it that. I will give it second favorite.
Well, I guess I can accept that.
Well, I'm glad.
So in saying that, I'm rating it above The Snowman. I'm rating it above The Bells of St. John, both of which I rated quite highly, but I stand by my pronouncement that I thought this was my favorite of the season.
Yeah, I have to say, I really did like this episode. I loved seeing like Strax again. I thought he was ridiculous and wonderful, and Vastra and Jenny. It was just it was fun.
It was. I liked Vastra and Jenny and Strax, and there's been a lot of talk, even going back to A Good Man Goes to War, about the fact that those 3 characters could easily have their own spin-off, just because even with the little bits of them that we get, they just seem so fully realized. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I think this episode just kind of, if anything, it proves that, because there's about 15 minutes where the Doctor's not even in it.
Right.
And the episode just completely works. I mean, obviously, in the back of your mind, you're wondering, all right, when's the Doctor going to show up?
Right.
But it does work on its own terms during the period where they're really carrying it.
Yeah, definitely. I would absolutely watch a spinoff.
I also thought that the coroner who kept saying the Crimson Horror, and as though he was like trying to make it a thing, I just thought that was really funny.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. I thought that, you know, it's a small part, but
he made the most of it.
Exactly. There's a whole lot of awesome crammed into it.
Yeah. Mr. Sweet was like he was. I mean, that was just like ridiculous, and I like that too. And like, you know, the parasite itself, it looked like cute almost.
Yeah, it did.
Especially when it was like crawling along on the floor. It was just like, what is this? And I loved that. I thought that was great, and especially and with the doctor, you know, offering to take it back to, you know, wherever its own time was or whatever, and then just getting killed, and he's like, oh, well, okay.
Yeah, I kind of, you know, they sort of built up the mystery around what Mr. Sweet was, and I was wondering, like, is it the Great Intelligence? Is that what's going on, or like is it? I just didn't know, and I was like, what's the big secret? And then I mean, I just laughed when they showed that it was this goofy looking alien leech that was stuck to her chest. I just thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
But it was not just hilarious. It was also, like, properly weird and disturbing.
Yeah, yeah.
Because while being hilarious. It was all those things and more.
Yeah, yeah. It managed to sort of strike that balance, which was really, really good. And I liked that. That, like, image on the dead person's eye thing, totally from Fringe.
Yeah, that was in Fringe. Well, it is a superstition.
Yeah, no, I
that actually exists.
Yeah.
So
no, I still am gonna say that's from Fringe, just because I wanna.
Okay, you may go ahead and claim that for Fringe.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
someone else may disagree, but
I'm sure there is some Fringe-like show that did it before Fringe did.
I think it might actually have been in an episode of Doctor Who.
Oh, really?
Like in the classic series. I don't remember which one, but I have a vague memory of it being connected to Doctor Who.
Huh.
But I don't remember where. And I'm not going to look it up.
Well, then.
I'm not going to Google Doctor Who eye thing.
And I guess that is your right.
The performances were really good. Like, I thought Diana Rigg as Mrs. Gillyflower was good. I'm not all that familiar with the work for which she is most famous, which is being in The Avengers, the British show The Avengers, not the Joss Whedon film The Avengers.
Glad you cleared that up.
Well, yeah, it must be said these days. It must be said.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think she's also in Game of Thrones currently. In fact, I think she was on Game of Thrones last night, so must have been a very big weekend for her.
I guess so.
I also thought Rachel Sterling, who played her daughter and is in fact her actual real-life daughter, as Ada, the blind woman, I thought that was a great performance as well.
Yeah.
And it was a very good, I don't know, it was a very good, sympathetic secondary character who was really well realized and was a lot of good.
Yeah.
That was just a lot of good.
Yeah. I definitely agree. I liked everyone. Everyone seemed really into it, I guess. I don't know. I mean, no, I agree though. It was really cool. Yeah, I think everyone did like a really good job.
This almost goes without saying based on my previous effusive praise, but I think this is definitely my favorite Mark Gatiss episode.
Oh yeah? You know, I don't know if it's mine though.
Which one would you hold above it?
I think I like Night Terrors like a little bit more. Maybe not though. I don't know. Now I'm doubting myself.
I enjoyed Night Terrors when I watched it. But, you know, in memory, it has sort of... I'm not going to say that it seems horrible now or anything, or like I think less of it. I just don't... I'm not as enthusiastic about it in retrospect as I was about it at the time. That may well be the case for this one in a year's time. Who knows?
Once again, I would say this is probably my second favorite Mark Gatiss script. This is winning a lot of second place awards with me.
Yeah, I see that. Well, you know, second place isn't bad, I guess.
Yeah.
Not as good as first, but better than third.
It is. It's better than third, and then also better than a lot of other numbers.
I continue to feel less and less crazy about Clara as time goes on, to be perfectly honest.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I felt like this was another episode where she was just kind of there because there's supposed to be a companion, so she just kind of shows up and then gets rescued and then lurks in the background and then hits a thing with a chair, and that's really all there is to it. But, you know, I feel like that wasn't that much of a problem because there were so many other great characters in the episode that it didn't really detract from my enjoyment of it in any way.
Well, yeah, you know, it's interesting because, you know, Clara was introduced technically halfway through this season. We haven't really had a lot of time to sort of get to know her. And, you know, it doesn't seem like they're making any real effort to change that. And I have to wonder if they're doing that kind of with any actual intention. Like, is she supposed to remain this kind of mostly, you know, just ambiguous character? Like, we wouldn't really know, like, what motivates her, or... I mean, we kind of have a sense, like, she's maybe trying to, you know, going out and exploring and stuff because of, like, the thing with her mother, but we don't really know much about that. And we certainly don't know anything about her supposed mystery about her. So yeah, I don't know. It's kind of odd how they are just sort of ignoring it.
Yeah, and I think one thing about the way she's been characterized, and I don't know, this may be something that you disagree with or anyone else may disagree with, but I feel like she almost fits the stereotype from the classic series of what bad Doctor Who companions were like. Like, they were just there to fill a quota. They would, you know, they're there to ask the Doctor questions, to get injured, to get captured and need rescuing, or stuff like that. And there are only really a few companions who have really been like that. And I wonder whether that might even be intentional. Sort of, you know, this is the 50th anniversary year. She's somehow tied into that. So let's just make her the, you know, epitome of a Doctor Who companion stereotype, in order to, like, do something interesting and clever with it at the last minute.
Yeah, I guess we could always hope for that.
Yeah, I'm not really holding my breath too much for that.
Yeah.
I
well,
guess.
And, you know, it seemed like it was implied that the Doctor brought Clara to this time period with the intention of taking them to London, perhaps as a way to maybe elicit some sort of reaction or cause something to happen, to maybe illuminate some of the mystery about her. It almost seems like he's just throwing everything he can at the wall and just hoping something's going to stick.
That does seem to be true. I mean, I wonder whether he planned to introduce her to Vastra and Jenny and Strax.
Yeah.
Or if maybe he didn't plan on doing that at all. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, he definitely seemed to be a little bit... Well, he started sounding crazy to them when he was like, oh, we gotta save Clara. And then, you know, he was kind of like, well, it's a long story. So he kind of seemed a little bit reluctant to tell them that there was another Clara. So I don't know. But yeah, I guess we're meant to assume he is definitely still trying to figure out what's going on with her. And he's not having much success.
Yeah, that does seem to be true. Maybe it really is just nothing.
That would be the biggest surprise of all.
It's just this coincidence.
They just look alike, and they all like souffles.
And they all say, run, you clever boy, and remember.
Actually, yeah, that would be awesome. I'm trying to run with this idea. You know, the problem is trying to convey that it's nothing, you know, in such a way that the audience will believe it and that the Doctor will believe it. Like, how would the Doctor discover that it was nothing?
Well, I don't know. I mean, he went to the empathic psychic, Emma, and she said, you know, she's just a normal girl. Mm-hmm. And if that didn't convince him, I don't know what will.
Right. Yeah. Because he didn't seem to accept that.
There can be no, like, revelation of normalcy. Like,
right.
Like, you find, like, this ancient tome of wisdom that records all the darkest secrets of the universe, and there's a listing for her under her name, but it just says nothing really. It's just nothing. Kind of a coincidence, I guess.
You know, it would be, but you know what would be? Yeah, it would be really upsetting if they just kind of dropped this plot line, which, you know, it seems like they won't, but then again, it also kind of seemed like they were definitely going to find out who brought the TARDIS to Amy's wedding day and cause it to explode. And that never happened. So yeah. Unless it's, like, still going to happen.
Maybe. Who knows?
Maybe they're saving that for the 50th.
Could be. Let's just save it all.
Yeah.
Save it all up for the 50th.
Moffat's playing the long game.
I'm already disappointed that the 50th isn't going to resolve it. I'm already disappointed with the 50th anniversary special. It's truly just awful.
Yeah. And I know.
What if it's like an illusion created by the TARDIS? It just picks out random people who have nothing to do with one another and causes them to appear similar to the Doctor. Like it causes the Doctor and his, associates to regard them as similar when they are in fact not.
Yeah, like maybe it's some sort of bug in the translation matrix.
Translation or chameleon circuit or something.
Yeah, one of those circuits. Yeah, what assurance do we have that there aren't some bugs in the TARDIS? I mean, come on, telling me that the Time Lords just churned out a perfect time machine? Come on. Well, obviously
there are bugs.
Yeah, yeah, but this would be a pretty critical one, I think. But it might explain why the TARDIS doesn't like her. But then you'd think that it would dislike all of the Claras, or maybe not. I don't know.
Who knows? Who, in fact, knows? There has been some controversy about the kiss.
Oh yeah, I read something about that.
About it's I don't know. I think overall I kind of roll my eyes at the inclusion of out of nowhere kisses that don't have anything to do with story or character in Doctor Who, which seem to be just a thing that happens. Yeah, like they'll just be thrown in almost as though they are obligatory. Like Clara kisses the Doctor in the Snowmen, for instance. But this one did seem a little bit creepier to me when I rewatched it a second time after having had it pointed out to me. Yeah. I mean, it could have, and I mean, maybe the Doctor was just really excited. I mean, God knows how long he's been trapped like that, and he was just really thankful someone came along. And it would have been, he would have planted that kiss on literally anything that would have saved him. It could have been. Like he had been seen previously to kiss Rory on the lips. That's true. That was a thing that happened. So even if Meglos had come and saved him, he would have planted a big wet kiss on his cactusy lips. Probably. I would love to rewrite that speech about Meglos, like that little speech he gives before he kisses Jenny. Like if I could rewrite that, but about Meglos. Well, it wasn't much of a speech. He just said Jenny, Jenny, Jenny over and over. I mean, it would just be Meglos, 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 right? Yeah, wasn't that? Wasn't that really? Well, he says something like that. He says something about waiting a long time, waiting for your favorite whatever something. He uses some adjectives like lockpicking, Victorian something. Oh yes, more adjectives thrown in there. That's true. So I'd love to see those adjectives substituted for Meglos. But I mean, getting back to the controversy, I don't know. I mean, it's certainly, if we're gonna, it does seem kind of creepy, and it does seem kind of out of character for the Doctor. I think it's especially creepy in the Victorian context. That's true. Which, I mean, when you think of women of that age in Victorian London, you're almost being treated in that kind of way. It's like a creepy Jack the Ripper kind of thing. Like horrible things happen to women because men were terrible, and you kind of like to think the Doctor's above that, right? But it's hardly the first time in the history of the show that the Doctor has been shown to say or do things that really are kind of awful. That's true. Well, and it seems like, once again, I have no idea if they're going anywhere with this, because it doesn't seem like they are. But it seems like this season, just Series 7 as a whole, has kind of been... It seems to have an unusually high number of instances where the Doctor does things that seem just ever so slightly out of character for him. Like he pretty much murdered Solomon. He brandished a gun in... Town Called Mercy. Yes, Town Called Mercy. There you go. And I mean, I know that Amy calls him out on it a little bit. Like, she says, maybe you shouldn't travel alone. But beyond that, we don't really get a whole lot of... There hasn't been much commentary on that. And, I kind of have to wonder if they're going somewhere with that. Well, it seems like there is a certain degree to which that's a thing. Mm-hmm. Like, for instance, we're kind of meant to believe that the things that he did in the first half of Series 7 are because he was traveling alone, and he shouldn't do that, which sort of culminates in a very callous version of the Doctor in the Snowmen, but that very quickly gets tossed aside. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Whereas, I mean, with Clara, I think it's a separate thing where he's just outright not being honest with her. That's true. I think the scripts of this series are making it pretty pretty clear that we're meant to think that that's not all that great of him, and that we shouldn't, and that she's right not to completely trust him. And, in Journey to the Center of the TARDIS, that ends up with, her outright being terrified of him,
right.
At one point. And then very conveniently, she just completely forgets that ever happened.
Right.
So, my hope is that there's something coming where it's going to be, that's going to cause a great deal of friction between her and the Doctor. I would hope, especially because of what I said before about, not being all that impressed with her character so far.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree. I think that they really need to do something with this. I mean, God, I do hope that they're doing something with this, because it's definitely not cool of the Doctor to do this. It's almost, well, actually, I would say it kind of is worse than him not telling Amy she's pregnant. I mean, this is the entire basis for Clara traveling with the Doctor, is just so that the Doctor can find out more about her. And she is completely unaware of this. And that's kind of really not cool. But yeah, so I kind of feel like they have to do something with that. They have to resolve that somehow. Like, they just got
it.
And
I'm hoping they will. Yeah. It'd be really lame if they just kind of dropped it.
Yeah, it really would. Yeah, I sincerely hope they don't do that. Although, I almost could see them doing that, where, the Doctor just kind of gives up, and he kind of gets tired of trying to figure out what's so unique about her, and so he just switches to let's just have fun mode. And I could kind of see that happening, but I really hope it doesn't. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. In the next episode, it looks like there are going to be 2 new companions.
Oh, yeah.
Children.
Children.
Hooray.
Have we ever had, actual children travel in the TARDIS?
I guess that depends on your definition of child.
Well, not any unearthly ones.
Right, exactly. there have been young teenagers, I guess you might say. Adric was pretty young.
Yeah.
Although he wasn't that young. Nyssa was pretty young. The only other instance I can think of, and this isn't even something I haven't even read this, but back in the 60s, there was a comic strip that ran in several different publications, I think. There have been Doctor Who comics in various publications. I think this was TV Comic Magazine, which featured the Doctor traveling with his grandchildren, John and Gillian.
Okay.
Or is it Jillian? I don't know. It's a G. I don't know.
Probably Gillian, but I don't know. I'm just basing that off of Gillian Jacobs.
Yeah.
I don't know any other Gillians.
It's good to base things off of Gillian Jacobs, sure. Anyhow, these characters were not based off of Gillian Jacobs, but they were... I don't know why they did this and decided that instead of having, the Doctor travel with the characters he was traveling with in the show, I don't know if there was some kind of rights issue or something, but they just made up these other characters for him to travel with called John and Gillian, and it's not clear where they fit into comic continuity. It's not clear how they could be the Doctor's grandchildren. I mean, obviously this is before anyone ever decided that the Doctor was a Time Lord or anything like that.
Right.
He was just a guy. So, but anyhow, and they were children, and they traveled with him to various places and met various aliens and things, and yeah, so that's the only precedent that I can think of.
So that's going to be interesting. Well, and it might. I wonder if that at all will bring the sort of, not conflict, but I can't think of a better word. Like the whole issue with Clara and the Doctor. I wonder if that might bring everything to a head. If the Doctor puts them in a position where there might be some amount of danger, but he's putting them all at risk.
Such as, for instance, by taking them to a place where Cybermen are.
Or, yeah. First of all, there's that. Definitely not does not fall into the positives category. So yeah, who knows? But this is Neil Gaiman's episode coming up.
This is Neil Gaiman's episode.
So that is very interesting.
And I feel like it seems to me like, I mean, the Cybermen have appeared pretty frequently, but it seems to me that for the most part, the Cybermen have usually been used in episodes that were really about something else, where they just needed a monster.
Right.
Like, for instance, their first appearance in the new series was The Rise of the Cybermen Age of Steel 2-parter, that was all about Cybermen. Mm-hmm. But then you have Army of Ghosts and Doomsday, which turned out really to be more about the Daleks.
Right.
And then you had The Next Doctor, which turned out to be more about, the Next Doctor guy.
Right.
And then you had the Cybermen in Closing Time, which was more about, like, the Doctor and Craig and that stuff.
The power of love.
Yeah, it was all about the power of love. It seems to me that, most of the time when they use the Cybermen, they're sort of like, all right, we got to have some monster in this, so let's just have it be the Cybermen. Why not?
Right.
Whereas it seems to me from what we've seen of the episode so far, just the trailer, it seems to me like this is much more focused on the Cybermen as the enemy and the point of the story.
Right, yeah. Actually, yeah, that'll be interesting as well, just to get like something more focused on the Cybermen. And it's this new it's the new Cybermen design. Was there a particular reason they decided to redesign them? That we're aware of?
I don't know. I mean, even back in the classic series, every time the Cybermen well, not every time, but many of the times when the Cybermen reappeared, there would be, some design changes. And, they've been working with the same design since 2005, and I feel like for much the same reason that the unsuccessful attempt to redesign the Daleks occurred, they are also attempting to redesign the Cybermen. But I feel like, we've already seen the new Cybermen design, whereas the Dalek redesign was a surprise.
That's true.
And I think there has been more positive reaction to the Cybermen redesign.
Huh.
Because I think they look pretty cool.
Yeah, they look pretty nifty. Certainly from what we've seen of the Cybermen so far, since they were introduced or reintroduced in the new series, they've always been from that parallel world, I think.
That's debatable, I think.
Oh?
Because at some point they stopped using the Cybus Industries logo.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, I don't think they had that logo in Closing Time or in their brief cameo appearance in A Good Man Goes to War.
Ah.
I think they just had a circle.
Okay.
Where the Cybus logo was. They've never been terribly clear on, which Cybermen come from which universe.
Right.
And I feel like that's fine.
Yeah.
You don't need to spend that much time explaining the history of the Cybermen because they tried to do that in Attack of the Cybermen.
Right.
And as I feel like I keep mentioning on this podcast, like that's sort of my cautionary tale about, why maybe it's not a great idea to halt the drama and explain the history.
Right. And I'm completely fine with not knowing. But
I had always just kind of assumed that at some point the Cybus Cybermen from Pete's world and the original Cybermen from our universe, at some point they probably would have, met up and cross-pollinated, and then they would have been just, one big group. Because, the Cybermen are always changing. They're always, like, assimilating stuff. They're always doing that good stuff. So I had always been happy to, come up with that explanation in my head. And if this episode completely overturns that, then I'm fine with that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, I guess I was just kind of wondering. Like I said, I guess they don't really have to address that, but it is something I've wondered. And I guess just redesigning them would be a good time to say, oh no, these ones are from this universe. Those other ones were from the other universe. And that would be like a good kind of way to draw that distinction. But
I think it would be even more fun if instead of drawing that distinction, they just muddied the waters further.
There's a third universe?
Like had the Doctor say there are so many different Cybermen for so many different parallel universes, and somehow they all seem to end up in this one. Or something like that, or just some offhanded mention that I don't know, Cybermen are independently invented on hundreds of different worlds, and they're always called the Cybermen for some reason.
Yeah, sure, why not? And I mean, what else would you call a metal person that you stick a brain inside and it's them? I can't think of anything.
I could probably think of a few, like cyborgs or metalmen.
Metal.
Or
yeah, I mean, it could just be you know what? Yeah, I don't know, but I'm sure it'll be good, or I'm hopeful it'll be good. I guess I'm not sure.
I'm not sure it'll be good, but I think it may be good.
Yeah. I trust Neil Gaiman.
I also trust Neil Gaiman, and I feel like Neil Gaiman has a lot of respect for the history of the show. He was a Doctor Who fanboy from old times, and last time he made something for the show, he did something that sort of refined and enhanced the sort of mythology of the TARDIS didn't throw anything out, but sort of, built upon it. And I'm hoping that he can do something like that with the Cybermen.
Yeah, that would be neat. I would be very pleased with that. I think it will be good no matter what. But I don't know. I'm just excited.
There are only 2 more episodes of Doctor Who.
That's right.
Ever. Well, not ever, but until November.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know that this is like way, way far out, and I think it would almost be unreasonable to expect them to have a timetable. But do we know beyond the 50th when Doctor Who's going to be, like, when Series 8's going to start? Like, we don't have any idea. Like,
no, I don't think anything's been officially announced. It kind of makes sense, though, because it took them forever to officially announce anything having to do with the current series.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I would really like them to go back to doing, an entire season starting in the spring and ending in the summer. I'd like that, but I don't know.
Yeah, I really think that when they came up with the idea of doing 13 episodes, including 3 two-parters with just a tiny bit of, plot arcing, which is really just, foreshadowing the big series finale, I think that was the golden formula, and I don't think that anything else they've tried has been as satisfying to me personally.
Yeah, and I kind of miss two-parters, because, we haven't had any of those since, Series 6, and, I kind of miss those. I wish they'd bring them back.
Yeah, I feel like the show's pace has increased substantially.
Yeah.
Even over the past couple of years, like, things tend to happen a lot faster and they cram more stuff into one episode. Mm-hmm. And it hasn't always been a good thing. I think, for instance, in the Crimson Horror, it turned out to be a pretty good thing because it kept the level of energy high. And I think if this had been, a 2-part story where things dragged out more, I don't think I would have enjoyed it nearly as much.
Yeah, that's true.
But it fit this story, whereas I think there are other stories that definitely could use a bit more time to breathe.
Yeah, so, I want the two-parters to come back. But yeah, I don't know. I guess it's far too early to know if any of that's gonna happen.
Mm-hmm. I mean, what has been confirmed, actually, is that there's a Christmas special this year. That's really all that's been confirmed. So it's the anniversary special in November, and then the Christmas special in December.
Huh, that's interesting. I mean, I guess, I don't know. I mean, I guess that, because, they're building up the 50th to be this big thing, and, I don't know, it'll be interesting to go from that huge thing to a Christmas special, which are usually kind of lighthearted and not too big or serious. So yeah, that's interesting, especially because since that's basically just a month apart.
Yeah, just a little over a month.
That'll be interesting.
I hope so. Have we mentioned at all what Big Finish is doing for the anniversary?
I don't think we have, because I don't know anything about it.
So, one of the things people are upset about with the TV show is that they're not including all the surviving Doctors.
Right.
Well, Big Finish is doing something that includes almost every surviving cast member of classic Doctor Who.
Whoa. How are they swinging that?
Basically, they have gotten Tom Baker, Peter Davison, Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy, and Paul McGann, as well as, each one of those characters has at least one companion that's along for the ride, and almost everyone else is showing up for a cameo. And it's called The Light at the End, and I'm not sure what it's about, but it's apparently going to be kind of crazy.
Yeah, I imagine so. That's kind of cool, and I think that Big Finish kind of lends itself a little bit better to doing that sort of thing, because they don't really suffer so much from having the Doctors look different, their voices are mostly the same as when they were in the role, maybe a little bit more raspy, but, for the most part.
Mm-hmm. I think it's not only that is definitely a major factor, but it's also that Big Finish is very much explicitly for mega fans, basically, and no one else.
Yeah.
So it's not for, random people who just turn on their TV and are like, oh, I heard about this Doctor Who thing, maybe I should watch that. It's for people who want the everything but the kitchen sink thrown in, and they have learned very well how to cater to that market and how to make things that are both strong stories and also incredibly fan pandery.
Well, there you go. Yeah, and that's cool. I mean, it's nice that, at least somebody's going to be including all of the Doctors, or nearly all the Doctors. So that's neat. and I'd almost be, well, I would be interested to listen to it, and maybe I will.
Maybe you will. It's up for pre-order if you want to, so.
Ooh. I might have to. I mean, like, I do have to admit that I was a little disappointed when I saw that they weren't going to be including any of the other Doctors in the 50th. And as much as that disappointed me, I am still withholding judgment. Like, I'm not yet convinced the 50th will be the worst thing ever. And I probably won't be until I see it.
I have a feeling it's going to be just fine.
I think so too. Yeah, I don't know. I think it would be really hard to make it downright terrible. But I don't know. I do know that disappointed people. Maybe not all people, but definitely people.
I think there are some people that were not only disappointed, but in fact outraged.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of that going around. You know, I mean, I guess you can sure go ahead and be outraged at a thing like that, but I mean, you know, I just think that it is. I don't think you can take just casting news and determine whether or not it's going to be a tribute to the 50 years of Doctor Who. Like, I mean, all right, you know, it would have been nice to see the classic Doctors, but I mean, that doesn't mean that it's like a slap in the face to classic series fans. I mean, it could still be very much, you know, reflective of the past 50 years. I mean, you know, I don't know.
What did you think about the flashback?
You know, I liked the spirit of it, but I do think that it was a little distracting when I was watching it. Because, I mean, they kind of pull you right out of the episode and bring you to this separate little thing. And I did really like the way it was done. I thought it was really clever how that sort of, that style of it. But it just seemed a little out of place, if I had to describe it.
Yeah, I kind of felt that way. I mean, it was kind of cute, but I don't know. I mean, it's not as though back in Victorian times there were video cameras that right. shot film that looked like that. I mean,
that's true. Nor was there sound at that point.
There was no sound in Victorian times.
It's just completely silent. Though I don't know if using little like dialogue cards or whatever that was called. I don't know if that would have improved things at all.
It might have.
But yeah, so at best it was anachronistic. But it definitely felt old-fashioned. Yeah, I just thought it was kind of a distraction, but I don't know.
I felt like it was kind of, I don't know, it was one more goofy thing in an episode full of goofy things. Like, for instance, any episode that contains the line, "Would you mind explaining to me why you're about to douse the people of London with diluted prehistoric leech venom?" It's, you know, and it's got the Thomas joke and the fainting guy, and then, you know, Strax being Strax and stuff like that. So I felt like it kind of fit in with the general overall comedic tone of the episode. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, I think just me personally, it kind of took me, and yeah, it is a little strange to say that was the thing that took me out of the episode. But yeah, I don't know. It just seemed like a little too distracting, in my opinion. Unlike Thomas, which was just hilarious. But yeah. So overall, I really liked this episode. I liked it too, as I think I've already said. I think I already declared it a, I don't know. I think the phrase I used on Twitter earlier was blatantly obvious A+ 10 out of 10 Doctor Who classic. Yes, I saw that. Yeah, no, that pretty much sums it up. Indeed.